Alright everyone, kind of really sucking at these intros right now, but basically we have another episode that I'm kind of a bit mixed about, but it's not by no means a bad episode, so let's just get right into it. So, this is the Parent Map, not to be confused with the Disney movie The Parent Trap. Let's begin. So this episode starts out at the Crystal Empire, where we see a male pony basically delivering, mail, and also for some reason getting tipped in carrots. Kind of wondering why they would be tipped in food. As they basically stop by Sunburst's house, where he basically gives a letter from his home. But Sunburst being Sunburst, he's more intrigued of basically magic books, because that's Sunburst.
I've got another letter for you from Sire's Hollow.
Sure thing.
I like how the male pony's like, I'm getting too old for this. So basically, as we see from a stockpile of letters as Sunburst is reading, he then hears a weird humming sound as he basically looks over and sees...
My cutie mark is glowing. My cutie mark is glowing! I know what this means! Why am I yelling?
You mean yelling at random! So, after the theme song, Sunburst basically heads on over to Twilight's castle to figure out what the friendship problem was, because, as we basically learned, the friendship map can pretty much summon, any pony outside of the main six now, as he's basically brought over to the castle to try to figure out where exactly he's going.
Call for a friendship mission?
You sure are, and it must be a special one. No pony outside of Ponyville has ever been called before.
That's another thing to know. No pony outside of Ponyville was called out for a friendship mission. I guess maybe if you want to be technical, because as I said, basically the map has recently been starting to pull ponies that are not the main six to deal with the friendship problems, as we saw with Spike in the Gauntlet of Fire and Starlight in A Royal Problem. And I guess technically she also counts as not really any pony outside of Ponyville, but after the Season 5 finale, she moved to Ponyville, so it's kind of misleading.
If you need some pointers, let me know. I've been on my fair share of missions.
And I'm sure by fair share of missions, I refer you back to the Gauntlet of Fire, where, while yes, you did go on your own, you also had Twilight and Rarity helping you out.
You've been on one, Spike.
Basically everything she just said. But we also find out that the map is also calling Starlight, as Starlight is not exactly pleased about it.
Sorry, are you not excited to go on a mission with me?
No. No, I mean, yes. Totally excited about us going together, just not so excited about where.
Shipping, 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 shipping.
Sire's Hollow?
Yep, home.
Oh, great.
It's like these two are just made for each other.
You know, I can go if you two don't want to. I am kind of an expert.
Of course, that really wouldn't work, Spike, considering that the rules of the show state that if you're not called to by the friendship map, then you're not really allowed to go. So on the train on the way there, Starlight and Sunburst basically start to complain about their parents.
Whenever I do, my dad treats me like a filly. Like nothing has changed since I was a foal. I know, I'm a horrible daughter.
I'm sure your dad probably is not aware of,
No. My mom actually does kind of the same thing.
Really?
I don't even have to go home. She sends me letters constantly asking about my plans for the future. You're a grown-up pony, Sunburst. You need a plan.
Somehow I can honestly somewhat relate to this, and I think with the talk of the parents, you kind of have a feeling where this episode's going, where it's basically every millennial's worst nightmare of trying to talk to their parents. Of course, with me, it's kind of a bit tricky because I'm 26-year-old and I am still living with my mother, so it's not like it's so it's not like it's anything that's kind of new to me since I'm pretty much with her almost 24/7, Evan usually. So it's not like I have to go anywhere, and we usually still watch TV together. But essentially, this is essentially the message of pretty much basically the episode saying, listen, kids, when you're older, be sure to talk to your parents every once in a while. So they go over to their home of Hollow Shade, where they grew up, but find that there are a couple of things that have changed.
Where did that come from?
Probably borrowed it on loan from the Haunted Mansion.
Welcome to Siren's Hollow.
So then they basically return where they see from their kind a bunch of things have changed as we see
Essence of what?
You tell me.
perfume.
What is it?
Chocolate? Maybe?
Not chocolate, maybe. Chocolate, definitely.
I'm now kind of thinking, is chocolate perfume a thing? If it's not a thing, somebody make that a thing.
And all of the benefits with none of the drawbacks.
Didn't this used to be a fruit stand?
I don't know what it used to be. The Science Hollow Development Committee determined what it is.
The Sire's Hollow Development what? Well, where do ponies buy fruit?
You can get a fruit smoothie 2 doors down.
So basically nothing to chew, but more so to drink. I've had smoothies before. It's been a long time since I last had one, but essentially Starlight and Twilight do figure out that one half of the town is basically getting redeveloped and pretty much removes any sort of manual labor. But then Starlight sees that the regular half of town seems to be normal, where they come across a bookstore, but it's being preserved.
Sorry, our bookstore has been declared a site of historical significance by the Sire's Hollow Preservation Society.
You'll have to experience the books from here. That's why windows are see-through.
So you're basically preserving a bookstore, but you're not allowed to read the books, you're only allowed to see them? That's a bit strange. But during all this, we do meet the parents, starting with Starlight's dad.
You are just as cutesy-woosey as ever.
Quit it. What is going on?
Oh, just a father wanting to preserve our town's rich history for his little funky wumpkin.
So I guess it's basically that's how Starlight's dad sees his daughter, just more of basically still thinking she's a little girl and treats her as such.
Promise no funky wumpkins in public.
Sorry, chipmunk cheeks.
Don't. You're preserving the whole town? That's crazy.
That's exactly what I told him.
And now we meet Sunburst's mom.
Starlight, you're crazy.
Mom?
Our village needs the same thing you do, Sunburst. A clear plan for the future.
So this is where we see kind of the conflict, where we see Starlight's dad and Sunburst's mom at conflicting odds. Where we see Sunburst's mom basically trying to re-embellish the town with a bunch of new things, while Starlight's dad wants to preserve it, as the two parents are pretty much at each other's throats right now.
And I'm not going to let you turn it into a museum.
Wait, are you two fighting over this?
Like having a friendship problem?
Oh, there's no problem.
Because there is no friendship.
Well, the good news is we know why we're here.
I just like Starlight's look where she just brushes her mane. And I also like the fact that they don't do the bad news, something, etc. joke in there. So they realize that essentially their two parents arguing is essentially the friendship problem, so Starlight and Sunburst try to bring them together to try to smooth things over.
Like you two are it.
You mean your success depends on us?
And you have to hang out with us the whole time you're here?
Like I said, and every millennial's nightmare.
Well, I'll hear what you have to say, but every plan I've made for this town is perfectly reasonable.
Good luck not convincing me my preservation efforts don't make sense.
So essentially they do just that, as essentially we get a montage of basically Starlight and Sunburst basically working to see the different ways that their parents have tried to improve the town, where essentially the gate from earlier, or basically every time when it opens...
Welcome to Siren's Hollow.
Yeah, so basically it's not just a one-time thing. Apparently every time you open that gate, it'll say, "Welcome to Siren's Hollow." So I'm probably wondering where exactly they got the recording equipment to do that every time they open the gate.
So we can't hold the books?
No. Can you hold the books?
No. So no pony can read the books?
Isn't she adorable?
Kinda ignoring the obvious problem, because there's no point in the library if nobody reads the books. So they continue to basically show off basically kind of the issues that their parents are doing for their respective sides, as we also get to go back to the perfume incident where...
No. But I call them essence. Fruity.
Kind of makes me wonder where they get the fruit essence if they're not allowed to have any fruit. And as I said, because there's no fruits that exist, they're having smoothies as sort of an alternative. So then it kind of makes you wonder, if there's no food in this place, how exactly are these ponies supposed to eat?
Ancient pony grains, just like the town founders ate.
Cherry! It's kind of amazing how everybody still managed to stand and not really starve at all this. So essentially, basically, the parents do eventually realize pretty much how flawed their basically preserving and progress is, as we get this funny joke. And as I pretty much mentioned earlier, Starlight and Sunburst basically show Sunburst's mom that every time you open the gate, that message basically keeps blaring, and we do get this pretty funny moment from Sunburst's mom.
Okay, it's annoying. I get it.
Maybe my preservation efforts were well over the top.
Like father, like daughter. So basically, kind of lets us know where Starlight got her traits from.
And I might have been trying to turn the town into a shopping mall.
Yeah, probably more so. But if it was a mall, then there'd probably be a building, and there'd be stores inside the building. So, but essentially, even though that the two actually end up forgetting.
After this success, I'm sure the Princess of Friendship will want to send you on more missions.
That's not really how it works.
Yeah, and besides, get with the times, because we're 8th season into this, and we kind of know this right now. And I think Sunburst is pretty much all the Brony fans trying to explain to their parents what exactly they're going on when they're trying to watch the show together. So essentially they try to leave, but as I said, despite now both parents now getting along, they haven't exactly solved the friendship problem because their cutie marks are not glowing, and this has caused the parents to be more ecstatic, and Starlight and Sunburst being more groaning.
My papa was called by the mouth in Twilight's castle. I was.
How are you going to explain this to the princess? What's your plan if she fires you from Friendship Quest?
Mom, she doesn't. It's not.
Use your words, Sunburst.
I guess you two weren't the problem we were sent to solve after all.
So now you don't even know why you're here? We have to figure this out before we run out of time.
There isn't a time limit.
Let's say about a 22-minute episode, give or take.
So you're here for an extra long visit? You can stay in your old room, Punky Wonk. It's just like you left it.
And apparently Starlight used to be a goth. That would explain a lot.
We need to find this friendship problem now.
So unfortunately, they both have to stick with their parents, as Starlight's dad basically ends up giving her a history lesson.
What was founded, we can start to explore all of the possible friendship problems that might have developed over time.
Maybe probably the one thing we can begin is figuring out your daughter's initial intent that she's managed to move past. But
Appreciate the history lesson, Dad, but I need to find the problem now, in the present.
Oh, now, Bun. How are you gonna do that without all the backstory, huh?
because basically kids don't have that kind of attention span, and they would probably fall asleep in the middle of the lesson. So while that's going on, we see that basically Sunburst's mom is kind of coddling him as he gets more increasingly frustrated as it goes out of her way, where Sunburst's mom basically pulls a Twilight from Lesson 0 and tries to make a problem with really, really bad acting.
Thank goodness you are here. These two ponies refuse to use my essences.
I am acting!
Maybe because we don't like to cover our natural scent.
Kind of makes you wonder, you kind of wish that deodorant existed in this world. So this essentially doesn't end up working as Sunburst gets a little bit more frustrated.
It could be a real friendship problem. You can't just make one up.
This is what happens when we don't rehearse.
So while that's going on, pretty much Starlight and Sunburst are pretty much now hiding from their parents because it's really becoming more of a hindrance than anything else.
What are you doing?
Hiding from my mother. She started making up friendship problems for me to solve.
My dad won't even let me talk to any pony in case they're strangers. I'm a grown bear.
Yeah, but unless if it's like online, then it's really shady. But yeah.
You're never going to find a friendship.
So essentially then, Starlight and Sunburst basically decide to hide in the old library because apparently now with the whole preservation thing now no longer being a thing, they hide in the library with a bunch of the background ponies that we've gotten to know throughout the episode to explain and try to figure out if there's any other friendship problem going on. But I think it's by this point in the episode, I think the audience can kind of put two and two together and figure out what the friendship problem is.
So they're avoiding their parents.
Of course. No, not avoiding, just taking a break.
Yeah, we needed to focus, but we're definitely not avoiding them.
Basically the way that we're trying to spare our feelings.
So you're whispering with all of us in the darkest corner of
Ultimately, it ends up doesn't really working, as Starlight's dad actually was end up in that library, and basically Sunburst's mom ends up catching them.
To look for a friendship problem in the present
Dad!
was to look back in our town history even farther.
I'm actually kind of a little bit curious of that. But essentially, the parents end up trying to conflict more ideas, but essentially it gets over to a boiling point where Starlight and Sunburst had finally had enough.
We don't want your help!
That's ridiculous. What reason could you possibly have for that?
Because you're driving us crazy!
Oh, really? And just how am I driving you crazy?
By always coming up with plans. I don't need a plan. I mean, maybe I do, but it'll be mine, not yours.
Well, I'm sorry for trying to help.
You're not any better. I'm not a filly. I'm a grown pony with a job to do, and I'll do it on my own.
Well, I'll let you get to it then.
Great. Now we have to smooth things over with our parents on top of finding and solving a friendship problem.
But I think pretty much by this point,
You don't think that's it, do you?
That's what all of us think.
Oh. Why couldn't we have been sent to stop a war or something?
I have other ideas, but essentially Sunburst and Starlight have to go to their respective parents and kind of basically smooth things over.
How is your friendship problem search going? I only ask as an interested observer, since I know you are an adult who's capable of doing things without help from any pony else.
Actually, I think Sunburst and I figured out what it is.
So,
Stellar and I weren't really helpful after all.
Well, we haven't actually solved it, and I don't think we can. Not without you.
Yeah, so I think really this message, I think admittedly it is kind of a kid, since it is a kid show, I don't think the kids would naturally kind of get this type of thing. I think this episode is kind of more for like the older bronies, I really think. And I think, you know, being more an adult, it is kind of more closer to home, as we see Starlight and Sunburst apologize to their respective parents, and we do see them being more real legitimate.
More than an apology to make up for telling me you don't want my help finding your friendship problem.
Oh, I'm not sorry for that. Starlight and I already figured out what the problem is.
Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention, I kind of glanced over it, but Sunburst is the funniest thing in this episode. He's probably been the most entertaining part of the episode that kind of just keeps me coming back laughing.
This is a terrible apology.
I guess that's the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
If you come with me and help fix it, I'll give you a better one.
Usually, Twilight or one of her other friends gets called to a place with a friendship problem to fix.
But Starlight and I realized we came here to fix a friendship problem we already had.
I'm sorry I've been avoiding coming home, Dad, but you can't keep treating me like a fool.
I'm sorry, Sugar Bun. I just know how hard things were for you when you left home. I guess I wanted you to feel safe, like when you were young.
And I guess that's really just kind of a thing to know, is that, and like I said, that's basically the moral that I think a lot of older bronies can identify with, is that, you know, your parents still love you, and the only reason that, you know, they may do some embarrassing things, but that's just because they're just trying to look out for you. Even if you are, you know, grown up and can handle yourself, well, they still want to try to look out for you for whatever time they have left with you. And this is kind of the episode that basically says that, listen, if you're an adult, try to talk to your parents every once in a while. I know my mom does that with my grandparents every once in a while, and, well, and it's basically kind of a bit of a challenge for that, but she did still try to do it for the amount of time that they might still have. And like I said, I can definitely relate to this. However, but I think maybe just for me, it's not bad by any means, just to clarify that, but I think just because that I'm still technically living at home, it's probably something that I'm already doing because I'm still living with my mom like 24/7, and I have very little time to interact with my dad. And the good news is that I'm actually going to be going out to see him next weekend, courtesy of my time off, limited time off albeit, but the point still stands.
I know I've made some mistakes, and I'll probably make a bunch more, but I learned from them.
Yeah, and unfortunately some fans still give you crap for it, and I don't get why.
I think that's what growing up is.
I'm sorry I never told you how much your plans bothered me, and I know you just want me to succeed, but I need to do that on my own.
I remember how lost you were when you flunked out of magic school. I thought, as long as you had a plan, you'd never feel that way again.
You don't have to worry, Mom. I need to find my own way. I definitely don't feel lost anymore.
Yeah, so it definitely is a good moral that I think a lot of us can really identify with. I think once you're old, probably when you're a teenager or you're older, I don't think that the kids are really going to kind of fully understand it. But essentially, it's because of this talk that end up fixing the friendship problem as they're about to go on their way back.
I don't suppose there's a way for you to get it to glow all the time.
Pretty sure it doesn't work that way.
Not unless we solve the friendship problem every few seconds, and I kind of hope this one will be it for a while.
You know, it seems to me your map is saying we're not just your parents. We're your friends, too.
I guess so.
So, if I promise to treat you less like a little filly and more like a friend, will you visit more?
Absolutely.
And if you start to drive me crazy again, I'll tell you instead of never coming home.
That's lovely of you to say, dear. But you know, I can always visit you.
Stellar, you're a genius! How do you feel about a road trip?
I might have a few hands for that.
Why do I get the feeling that these two move in after this episode. So the train comes as Starlight and Sunburst are trying to wave frantically, and that's the end, and that was the parent map, and I think it was a good episode. Honestly, it's not fantastic. I think probably once you connect the dots, you can kind of basically see where this episode's kind of going, and it does kind of stall a little bit. I think really just some of the jokes that I think maybe might have been cut out. I think obviously the scene in the library for me is probably a scene that they could have just cut out, and I don't think you would have missed anything. But there's nothing that really overall like fully breaks the episode where it's not one of the worst. Because Sunburst was definitely hilarious. Finding more about Starlight's backstory and how they get what character traits they got from their parents to see what they're like as ponies. And I think the moral, as I said, if you're watching this episode as like a teenager or an adult, I think this is an episode that you can definitely relate to. If you're probably, as a kid, if you're watching this episode as a kid, I don't think that they're really going to get it, I think. Like I said, I think this episode's probably more for the older ponies, but it's a moral that's definitely important, and it's basically saying, call your parents every once in a while and ask them how they're doing. I think it's a really good moral, and this episode did get a few chuckles. Sunburst was still funny throughout the entire episode, and I did find the parents to be enjoyable, even if at times it did come off as a little awkward. So I think really on the whole, it does get a little bit cringy at times and a little bit awkward, but it's still a good episode. I think overall, I think the parent map is about a B. Not great, but it's still a good episode. You know, I'm actually starting to reconsider about what I said about Season 8 so far, because let's just recap. So far, the season premiere has been good. I somewhat like Granny's Gone Wild. It's a good episode. Well, that's pretty much a good episode. Horseplay was was a little bit of a downgrade, but it was still good overall. Well, this episode was definitely a blast, and I definitely enjoyed watching it. And Surf and or Turf was another episode. I mean, it wasn't perfect. I mean, the two episodes after the season premiere, Fake It Till You Make It and The Mod Couple, definitely drove my patience. But that's so far 6 out of 26 episodes that were good. Maybe I'm just probably letting my anger get the better of me, and I probably just have the preconceived notion of other Brony analysts saying that it's the worst season, but it seems to be good so far outside of 2 episodes. Alright, so our next episode is Non-Compete Clause. And there it is! See you guys next time.